this is close.
Well, we can wrap it up now. That was so great. Thank you.
What does that say? Oh, Mrs. New Jersey. Okay.
Nice. Nice.
Themed audience.
Good to see you, Mrs. New Jersey.
Isn't this a treat tonight, Tuesday night in New York, to have Oprah and Arthur Brooks here and talking about happiness?
We're happy to be here.
I want to start out with a very simple question. Who found whom here?
I found him.
You did?
Yes. During the pandemic, I was searching for what to read. I read a whole bunch of books that I had wanted to read forever, and then I started reading The Atlantic, which I just love The Atlantic, and reading his column every week. It was The Atlantic that got me through the pandemic. They did the best pandemic stories. Mm-hmm. Not that you didn't, George.
I read them too.
Okay,
I get it.
Weren't they really
They were fantastic.
They were fantastic.
Absolutely.
So I started reading all the pandemic stuff, and then I read his column, and then I was like, where can I get more? I went and looked up more, and I was just excited, and I called him and said, I love your columns so much. You know what you should do? You should take all those columns and write a book. You should do a book with all those columns. And what he did, when he first, even before he met me, is he put all the columns together in a bound leather book and sent them to me.
Wow.
Yes.
Here we are today.
And here we are today.
Here we are.
I found Arthur a very similar way. I was reading The Atlantic, but we'd actually met when you were just starting the column.
Right.
I was first aware of you when you were heading the American Enterprise Institute, and I honestly could not understand the shift. I think of the American Enterprise Institute, you're running this, free market principles think tank in Washington, D.C., and the next time I turn around, meet you, reading your column every Friday, you're focused on happiness. What is that journey like?
This is trying to build my own life. It's a wonderful thing. All of us and many of you, we have this opportunity to see our life as a startup, as an enterprise, to be an entrepreneur in this serious business of our own lives. But if we're going to do that, we got to take it seriously. We have to think, what kind of value am I going to create? How am I going to change myself? How am I going to mold myself to the new environment? I ran a think tank for 10 years, and I thought by the end, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And I wrote down a little mission statement. I want to lift people up and bring them together in bonds of happiness and love using ideas. Why? Because I look up to people who do that.
That's what you just wrote to yourself?
Yeah.
I'd like to see your journal. Wow, mine is just like...
And then sometimes when you do something like that, you get some breaks. Sometimes the phone rings and somebody says, this is Oprah Winfrey. And you say, yeah, and I'm Batman.
So, you said part of your mission statement is pursuing happiness, teaching happiness. Why don't we start by trying to define it?
Yeah. Shall I go?
Professor.
All right.
Definitely
So,
you, Professor.
On the first day of my class at the Harvard Business School, I have 180 students, 400 on the waiting list, an illegal Zoom link they think I don't know about. And they're there because it's a happiness class. And so I say, look, you spent all your elective points to take a happiness class. You must know what it is. What's happiness? And one by one they say, it's the feeling I get when I'm with the people that I love. It's the feeling I get when I'm doing what I enjoy. And I say, wrong. Happiness is not a feeling. Feelings are evidence of happiness. Like the smell of your Thanksgiving turkey is evidence of the Thanksgiving dinner. If you look for feelings, if you choose to chase feelings your whole life, you're going to be chasing it and not finding it and be frustrated. Best news of the century. Happiness is not feelings. You want the feelings, but you have to get the real happiness, and that's a combination of enjoyment, satisfaction, and purpose. And those are real things that you can study, that you can learn about, that you can change your habits to pursue, and best of all, that you can share in a spirit of love with others. That's happiness.
And what I love about this definition, y'all, is that a lot of us have many pleasures in our life. And there's a big difference, Arthur says, between pleasure and enjoyment. Can you share that with the people?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm delighted to. The biggest mistake people when they're looking for enjoyment is they stop with pleasure. Pleasure starts in a part of your brain called the limbic system. It was evolved over a 40 million year period. It has one job, which is to give you feelings, emotions, cravings, desires. It sends signals for what you ought to do to stay alive and pass on your genes. What you need to do is to experience what gives you pleasure in the prefrontal cortex of your brain, the meaty tissue right behind your forehead. Why? Because then you'll be conscious of it and it will really lift you up in happiness. The mistake that we make is hitting the pleasure lever again and again and again. So how do you go from pleasure to enjoyment? And the answer is you got to add two things. You don't have to take anything away. You add people and memory. When you're doing something that feels good by yourself again and again and again and again, that's a problem. That leads to addiction and misery. But you add people that you love and memories of a beautiful time together, and then you've got enjoyment, and that's the central first ingredient, macronutrient of happiness.
So pleasure can be addictive, but happiness is not addictive.
No, happiness is something that we all need, and it feels quite fleeting. But happiness is a skill.
And I love the idea, we all, first of all, I love food, bread, and you can have pleasure eating it yourself. You have a lot of pleasure, but enjoyment comes when you can share it with someone else. That's why a Thanksgiving meal feels so nourishing, because it's not just because of the food on the table, it's because of the people around the table that you're sharing it with and the memories that you're creating, and therefore it's enjoyable. And I always say, life is better when you share it. So long before I knew about metacognition and all the science to do with happiness, growing up in Mississippi on a dirt road with just my grandmother, no running water and no electricity. When I used to say that to kids in school, they'd ask me afterwards, do you know Abraham Lincoln? No, it just sounds like I grew up with Abraham Lincoln. But when I was growing up and candy was so hard to come by, and every time you get a candy bar, it would be like such a big deal. I remembered eating a Baby Ruth bar. Y'all remember what those are? Baby Ruth. Thank you. Baby Ruth by myself. And I really liked it, but I wished I had somebody to share it with. And the next time I got one, I waited until my cousins came by. And it was so much better. It's so much better when you can say, isn't that good? Isn't it good?
It seemed like you lived these principles or shared them with the world in your show for so many years.
Yes.
Why did you need
That's
the
why we
science?
clicked.
Right, but why did you need the science?
Why did I need the science? Because I wanted the science. So he sent me the book. I invited him to dinner, one of the best dinners I ever had, because we just sat and talked about this stuff all night long. It was enjoyment.
Enjoyment. I mean, your table is epic.
Yeah, well.
I mean, that's fun.
The food was good, but the conversation was so great. And I just wanted to share that. I thought, wow, people need to know this. Everybody needs to hear this. So, in all those years of the show, every time I found something or did something that I thought was really great, favorite things on the Oprah show came about because I discovered a great pair of pajamas. And I had given the pajamas to everybody I knew, to the point where Gail says, I hope I don't get those pajamas. I love those pajamas. And so I'd run out of people to give the pajamas to. Then I discovered Uggs. I'd run out of, I literally brought everybody in my staff down into the studio one day to say, we're handing out Uggs, guys. Uggs are so great. And then I was like, who else can we give them to? That's how favorite things started. Mm-hmm. What if we just gathered the audience and just gave them good stuff? And so this idea of being able to share what you have and offer what you have to other people has always brought me great enjoyment.
So happiness is not, it's not a feeling.
Right.
It's a skill. Can you be born happy?
You can be born happier than other people naturally. About half of your natural baseline mood is genetic, which is sort of depressing in this way.
But also relieving. When I had this conversation with you, I was so relieved because everybody knows Gail is my best friend. She's the happiest damn person I know. Yeah. She's always so optimistic, so joyful. I say you're walking through the world with yellow colored glasses, and it sometimes is like annoying. Yeah. Because so happy all the time.
Oh, I know. But if you're kind of a gloomy person, look at your parents. Your mother literally made you unhappy, genetically. So it's her fault. So, but here's the thing. It's also true that 50% of your tendency to abuse alcohol is genetic. But if I tell you that, you say, hey, professor, I got this problem. Hey, well, okay, what's your problem? My mom drinks too much. My dad drinks too much. All 4 of my grandparents drink too much. I guess I'm going to be an alcoholic. And say, no, you're not. I have a special technology to turn that 50% genetic tendency toward alcoholism to 0. Here's the technology. It's super complicated. Don't drink. See, this is the thing. And if you know your genetics, then you can adjust your habits. That's why this is power. So in the book, Oprah and I, we got the best possible scientifically validated test for you to understand and to analyze yourself, your mood levels, your personality with respect to your emotions. And once you take it, boy, it opened my eyes to me.
It opened my eyes to me.
And we understood how well we
Now
worked
you
together.
can take it and open your eyes to you.
You know, I took it as well.
Did you take it?
I took it.
Yes.
And I came out above average on the positive and average on the negative. But I'm confident, and Allie, I think, is here. My wife is here. I'm confident if she took the test for me, I would not have scored as high on the positive.
Yeah. You can't take them. Okay, you're getting heckled right now. You're getting heckled. That's a familiar heckling voice.
But explain what the test is.
Okay, the test is called the Positive Affect, Negative Affect Series, PANAS. And if you go to the website for the book, you can actually take it yourself. You can take the test. Nobody sees the results but you. And here's what it does. It says basically there's 4 kinds of people with respect to the intensity of your emotions. You have negative emotions and you have positive emotions. They're just signals. Don't say they're good or bad, because they're not good or bad. You need both to be alive. But you can experience one or both more intensely than other people. If you have intense negative emotions and intense positive emotions, that's a quarter of the population, that makes you a mad scientist. That's what we call it. If you have high positive emotions and low negative emotions, then you're a cheerleader. Okay? If you have high negative and low positive, you're a poet.
Yeah.
And if you have low affect, which is to say you have plenty of emotions, but you have a low expression, you're cool as a cucumber on both sides, you're a judge. Now, everybody's good at something, and you need to know your affect profile so you can figure out what you're supposed to do. And by the way, who you should marry. It might be too late. And who your business partners might want to be, and who your friends are probably most likely to be. And not because they're just like you, by the way, but because they complement you. You know the best person to work with if you're a mad scientist, you should work with a judge.
Right.
That's your best business partner. And guess what? I'm a mad scientist.
And I'm a judge.
There you go. Made in heaven.
And you were saying to me earlier today that if you have 2 cheerleaders, which Gail is a big cheerleader, so 2 cheerleaders, what happens when
you got a problem because cheerleaders hate negativity. They shun negativity. By the way, they're not always good bosses either because they can't give anybody serious criticism. You know, when you're sitting in your cubicle and the boss comes in and says, I want you to know, you're doing a phenomenal job, and you feel so good. And then you hear her saying the same thing to the idiot in the cubicle next door. So that's what I mean, right? But when 2 cheerleaders meet each other, they don't see threats because they block out all negativity. They spend all the money and go broke. If you're a cheerleader, marry somebody who actually sees threats. Marry a mad scientist, or even better, marry a poet. Because a poet will be your personal threat spotter. By the way, poets, if some of you are poets, it's good. Why? Because poets, they use a part of their brain intensely called the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex. And what it does is it makes you ruminate. That's why you're a poet. You ruminate on things. Some of you know that feeling, I can't stop thinking about it. But you also are more creative and more romantic. Because that's what people use when they're in love and they can't stop thinking about their beloved. You poets, yeah, you're tough on yourselves. But you're lovely to live with because you're romantic and creative people. And we need you.
Yeah.
We
Can
also-
you be a mixture of many of them?
Not really. But what you find is that you have your natural habitat. And you can kind of put on the affect of others if you're in leadership.
Yes.
So even if you're a poet, and look, if you're a mad scientist or a poet and you have a lot of high negative affect, there are times to temper that and turn it off. You need to be a good actor sometimes.
But don't, I mean, I certainly have found this in my marriage. Don't you learn from each other over the course of 20 years and become a little bit more like each other, even if you're opposites naturally?
Well, you fill in each other's gaps. And this is the biggest mistake that people actually make when they're trying to find somebody to fall in love with and marry. They look for people who are too much like them. Oprah and I talk about this in the book. The biggest mistake people make when they're dating is looking for somebody who's complementary, who's too compatible. Dating profiles on dating apps, you curate. You curate the people. It's like my taste in music and my political point of view and what I like and what I don't like. And you wind up dating somebody who's like your sibling, right? Which is, as my adult kids would say, is not hot. You need somebody different. Compatible enough on your basic values. Okay, if you want the same religion, all good. But then you need somebody who's different, who completes you, who helps you experience the parts of the world that your affect profile won't allow you to experience.
Also someone who makes you laugh. You have a great line in the book. Better to consume humor than supply it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you must be laughing all the time with that. Oh my gosh. Yes.
No, I think man made a great choice in that.
Yeah. No. It's great. I mean, the fact is you live with somebody who professionally provides humor and laughter to other people. But the truth is that, a sense of humor is one of the great secrets to happiness. And humor is an emotion that you can choose. We talk a lot in this book about emotional selection. Once you become, Oprah just referred to metacognition. That's the case in which you can actually get some space between the emotions that you feel and the decisions that you make for the reaction to these emotions. And the way that you do that is by journaling or meditation or prayer, or some people go to therapy, but the whole point is you got to get more time so you're not a reactive limbic person. That's
Don't we think, though, as we were talking about this when we first met at my tea house, that this idea...
I met at her tea house. I just want you all to catch that.
I have a tea house.
It's okay. It's like,
I have a tea house where we actually have tea.
I had tea in Oprah's tea house.
We have tea. When we were talking about this...
What's a tea house?
One of the things that... I use it mostly for reading, but one of the things that's so interesting is that most people allow, or many people allow themselves to be controlled by their emotions. You allow yourself to be overcome by the feelings and taken over by the feelings instead of being able to be cognitive about the feelings and separate yourself from the feelings. So feel the feel and take the wheel of your own life instead of letting the emotions drive you.
Exactly right. No, this is exactly right. I mean, a lot of people feel, it's interesting, people say to me all the time, look, I can manage a company, I can manage my finances, I can manage my family, I can manage my home. I can't manage my emotions. It's like the one big thing that's like with me all the time. I can't manage that. And the reason is because it's a different kind of problem. It's a complex problem of living inside of your head, and that's the reason that we talk about the science in this book. This is not a science textbook. All of the references are in the endnotes. This is a book for actual human beings to read. But it's based on science because once you understand how your brain works, you'll never be the same. Once you understand that the limbic system provides just signals so you can survive, make it, live another day, and then you can assess those as if they were happening to somebody else. Then you can choose your reaction. You can choose a different emotion that's also appropriate. You can choose to disregard your emotions and just observe the world, and that's what George is talking about with humor.
You have to become an observer of yourself as well.
Beg your pardon?
You have to become an observer of yourself.
Exactly right. This is the reason that in most Eastern meditation techniques, people will sit in meditation and say, I would say, for example, Arthur is feeling thrilled right now because he's sitting next to Oprah Winfrey. What a strange feeling that is. What a lovely feeling that is. And see myself at a particular remove as opposed to being managed by my emotions, which is not the way to live, particularly if sometimes, inevitably, those emotions are not as wonderful as they are at this very moment. If I'm feeling fear or disgust or anger or grief or anything along those lines, I want to be able to say, there's a reason for that. And once I understand the reason for that, I can actually choose the reaction that I want to have that's most productive, that's most loving, that's most appropriate to the situation. And humor is a key one. So Oprah and I have a friend name that you know too, I'm sure, that many of you are aware of. His name is Rainn Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
Now, he was the actor. He played Dwight in The Office. He grew up 5 miles away from me in Seattle, and we're the same age. I didn't know him when I was a kid, but we connected over this key fact. And I asked Rainn one time, why is it that so many comedians are depressed? Why are so many comedians depressed? What is it about comedy that bums you out so much, that makes you into a depressed person? He said, you got the causality going the wrong direction. He says, when you're bummed out, you become a comedian because you figure out that when you're feeling awful and you tell a joke and everybody starts laughing, that life is better. That's emotional substitution, and that's the power of humor, among other things.
Let me switch gears just a little bit. America's not a particularly happy place right now, is it?
Correct.
Why?
Correct. You want to take that one?
Well, I think, let's go back to the book. I think one of the things that you talk about is the 4 pillars that really connect us to happiness is family, friends, work, and faith. And I think that there are a number of people who are feeling really lost. I feel that people are disconnected from their family. I think that people are feeling isolated and lonely. I think that people mostly believe in themselves, and they look at, or certainly a great number of people now just have themselves and what they see on social media to believe in. And so when you're looking at somebody's external pictures and determining from those external pictures what your internal picture should look like, that's no way to be guided in life.
Hyper-connected yet hyper-lonely at the same time.
And so hyper-lonely. And so I feel that a lot of people have lost their way. And I think that we've lost the center of what really brought us a valued sense of moving forward as a collective body in democracy, and that is those 4 pillars.
These are the 4 pillars on which to build your life.
That's what I think.
Faith, family, friends, and work. Faith, family, friends, and work. And by the way, I don't just mean working harder, making more money, having more power, having more prestige and admiration of other people. No. It's work where you earn your success and you serve others and you feel like you're touching somebody else's life. That's, in other words, what Oprah's saying, and we have to remember this, there's no substitute for the institutions of love. There's no substitute for it.
Right.
There's a lot, by the way, we could talk about all the neuroanatomy that you want. There's a thing in the brain called oxytocin. It's a hormone that links us together. It's intense when you see Gail in person. I saw you today when we saw Gail.
Oh, yeah,
and it was
yeah.
magic. And the reason is because it was like the 4th of July of oxytocin in your head. It was, beautiful.
Yeah.
And I have my kids, when your children are born, you lay eyes on your newborn child for the first time. It's just, you can't describe it. And okay, so, biologists will say that's so we don't leave the baby on the bus or something. I don't know, right? But the truth of the matter is that that's a miracle. I believe it's a gift from God that we get this thing. It's such a wonderful thing. And you don't get it when there's no eye contact and there's no touch.
Yeah.
When you notice we got together in your tea house to work on this book because Zoom isn't good enough. We needed to link together as human beings to talk about this connection.
But it's so interesting that you mentioned that with Gail, because I saw her, this is the thing, I mean, Gail has been the greatest parent for me to observe in my whole life. And I didn't have parents that I was really very connected to. So watching Gail raise her children has been just, actually, was kind of astounding to me. I would say, oh, that's what mother is. Oh, that's what that's supposed to feel like. And I remember many years ago having Toni Morrison on the show, and she was talking about when she was a young mother raising children, that her 2 boys would come into the room and the first thing she'd do is say, pull up your pants and comb your hair and why is your zipper undone and all that stuff. And that she would realize that then that their little spirits would kind of sink. And she came to understand that what children really want to know is, do your eyes light up when I enter the room? And everybody in the audience went, oh, the mothers did that. And what I realized is that's what everybody wants to know when you enter the room. Yeah. That's what Allie wants to know when you enter the room.
Yeah, that's what she wants to say.
Do your eyes light up when she enters the room?
They do.
George is writing it down.
Well, no, I wrote a lot of things down as I was reading the book, but help everybody out here. If you were going to write 3 things down, okay, tomorrow I want to take this seriously. Yeah. I want to take happiness seriously. Yeah. What are the 3 things I need to do every day?
Okay. The 3 things that we need to do every day. Number 1 is pay attention to your happiness portfolio. Faith, family, friends, and work. This does not take care of itself. My friends, it does not take care of itself. And when I say faith, I don't mean my faith. I'm a Catholic, super important to me, but as a social scientist, I will tell you, it's not even religious faith that I'm talking about. Oprah and I talk about our faith in this book, but the whole point is that you need something bigger than you.
you.
A philosophy, a way of thinking, the wisdom of the ages that will make you good and small and give you peace and perspective. And you need to practice it every day. So practice number one is that. It's also calling a family member and not letting that connection die, and most certainly not letting a connection die over something stupid like politics, which 1 in 6 Americans is doing. 1 in 6 Americans is not talking to a family member today because of politics. And the culture warriors have brainwashed Americans into thinking that politics is an act of violence against your identity. The only reason that there should be schism in a family is actual abuse, and political differences of opinion are not. Don't deny yourself happiness.
So do you talk about it, or you engage?
You can engage as your prudential judgment would suggest, but there's plenty for you to talk about with respect to your relationships. The third thing is friendship, and Oprah and I talk about this a lot in the book. A lot of people say, I got tons of friends, but I'm lonely. That's because they're not real friends. They're deal friends. You know the difference between real and deal. And if you can't remember it, or you can't figure it out, we talk in the book, you make a list of the people who are closest to you, and after each one of them, put R and D. That doesn't mean Republican and Democrat. That means real and deal. And if it's all D's, you got to go out and get some more R's on that list. And that actually takes work. It doesn't take care of itself. And last but not least, when you earn your daily bread, are you offering it up as an offering of love to everybody? Are you serving other people? Do you believe it? Do you believe that you're earning your success? That's practice number one, is the portfolio.
How much does money matter?
It does not. It does not. Money matters for lowering unhappiness when you have almost none. It's funny. Economists like me, we've been looking at this stuff forever. And here's a weird thing that happens. Many people early in their lives, when they don't have very much money, and they're struggling, and they have needs that can't be met, and they get a little bit more money, they notice they feel a lot better. When I was 19 until I was 25, I never went to the dentist one time, and I had no health care. The reason is because I had no money. And when I think I probably didn't go a day without cigarettes in those days, though. So it's like priorities, folks, priorities. Anyway, don't worry, I quit. But at 25, I went to the dentist, and I felt much better, and I concluded that the money made me happier. That's wrong. Now remember, happiness and unhappiness are on different sides of the ledger. We talk about this a lot in the book. And what we consider to be feeling better can be because your happiness goes up or because your unhappiness goes down. When you're poor and you get more money, your happiness will decline up to a particular point. And you chase that feeling, and you chase that feeling. That's what's called the hedonic treadmill. Oh, I'm going to get it back. Oh, this will feel better. Oh, this much more. Oh, it'll feel better. It doesn't feel better. There are 3 ways that you can feel better with money. You can buy money in 3 ways. Not with stuff. No. Number 1 is you can get experiences with the people that you love. Number 2, you can buy time, so you can spend it with the people that you love. And number 3, you can give it away to causes that you love. Only when you convert your money into love will it bring you happiness.
You're talking about this hedonic treadmill and made me think back in graduate school. I was reading St. Augustine, talking about this spiral of desire, not being able to get your wants under control. In some way, that is a key to happiness.
It is, and this is another thing that we talk about. We think that, Mick Jagger sang, "I can't get no satisfaction." He still sings it. He's like 100, and he's still singing it. That's like
he's only 80.
He's only 80.
I know. During the coronavirus epidemic, my little girl, who's not so little, she's 20 now. She's studying, and I realized that she's not in class. She's clearly watching a YouTube video because she was laughing. And I said, "Honey, what are you looking at?" She says, "I'm looking at a video of a very old man dancing like a chicken and trying to sing. I don't know who he is." It was Mick Jagger. And I'm thinking, yeah, honey, this is... And she says, "Do you people like this?" By which she meant old people like me. I took great umbrage at that. But the whole point is that you can't... It's not true that you can't get no satisfaction. The truth is you can't keep no satisfaction. And the reason is because we think the formula for satisfaction is having more. Have. The formula for satisfaction is all the things that you have divided by all the things that you want. You don't need to have more. You need to want less.
Right.
And that's the project.
Ooh, that's a good one. You don't need to have more, you need to want less. Tweetable moment. That is so good.
I underlined 3 words when I was reading the book because it spoke to me in a different way. I'm a very bad golfer, but I enjoy golf. And I realized one of the ways I enjoy it, if I'm playing with other people, is if I remember deep down that everybody else playing with you doesn't care how you play. The 3 words you had in your book were "no one cares," and remembering that as you walk through your life.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
It's funny, isn't it?
I think it is. I think it is.
It's funny because you feel like it's such a threat to your ego that nobody would care. And then when you embrace it, you finally are free. You're finally free. You know, you can live your life. You can recognize that everybody's really worrying about themselves for the most part. They pay a little attention to you, but it's kind of a passing glance. And it's just so great. It's just so wonderful, isn't it?
It's freeing.
Totally.
Yes, but I think back to enjoyment, meaning sharing with other people and having a memory about it and being conscious of it, satisfaction, and meaning. I think one of the reasons why a lot of people are also lost is because their life lacks meaning. And I think not having a life that fills you up, that gives you a sense of purpose, a sense of knowing why you came to the planet and what you were intended to do, not just your job, but what is the real work of your life. I think that that's one of the ultimate keys, is understanding that.
Absolutely. You know, we propose a little test. It's been scientifically validated, but it's pretty evocative nonetheless. I can tell if somebody has a meaning crisis. Oprah and I will ask you 2 questions, and consider these questions in your soul a little bit. And if you don't have answers, that means there's a meaning problem, but that's good news because now you know what questions to find answers for. Question number 1, why are you alive? Question number 2, for what would you be willing to die today? A lot of people don't have, I remember one of my kids just didn't, I mean, it's not that fun growing up with me because you get, this is like dinner time conversation, right? It's like, yeah, Dad, great. It's a downer. But my middle son, Carlos, he didn't have answers. He really didn't have answers, and it was tough on him. And so finally I said, where are you going to go find the answers when he was getting ready to leave home? He went and he worked on a farm outside by himself. And then the real answer time came when he joined the Marines. And Carlos is now scout sniper in the Marines 3-5 out of Camp Pendleton. He's a Special Forces Marine. And I ask him now, by the way, he's 23, he's married, I say, Carlos, why are you alive? And he says, because God made me to serve others. And I said, Carlos, for what would you be willing to die? And he said, for my faith and for my family and for my friends and for the United States of America. Boom. Good answers, son. Good answers. And that's why he has found meaning, because he's, and if you struggle with that, or I struggle with that, all of us struggle with that from time to time, go on a quest for the answers to those questions, and your life will change.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
How about some questions from all of you? Do we have any backstage yet?
Bringing those questions.
They are on their way. So I'm going to ask another one. This is something goes back to something. Oh, I won't. Okay. It's a good one. I am nearing 50, young person. Any advice on redefining happiness for the next life phase?
We've talked about this a lot.
I love 50. Turning 50, Maya Angelou told me this, 50s are everything you've been meaning to be. You're just getting started. It's fantastic.
It really is.
Redefine it. It's everything you've ever thought you want to be or could be or believed you should be doing. The 50s are everything that you've been meaning to be. You actually get to it. I loved turning 50 so much because in my earlier years, prior to 50, I always was living to please other people. When I suddenly became a well-known figure and my salary was published and my family thought I was the First National Bank and everybody was, which happens to anybody who's the first in their family to do anything. So imagine in my family where we grew up with no running water, no electricity. So everybody thinks that you're supposed to solve, all of their problems. But coming to realize for myself and making the decision for myself about how I was going to manage all of that changed my own, way of being and meaning and purpose. It did.
When you and I talked about this for the first time, you talked about turning 50 and going into your 50s, and you realized something that we've subsequently started calling crystallized intelligence.
Yes.
And so this is a key thing. In the psychology literature, there's two kinds of intelligence. There's fluid intelligence, which is your ability to innovate and solve problems really quickly, a lot of working memory. It's what you have in your 20s and 30s, like crazy. It declines in your 40s and 50s. If you don't believe me, try to recall somebody's name who's walking down the street. You're going to feel like an idiot, but you're not. That's your fluid intelligence in decline, but there's crystallized intelligence that comes in behind it in your 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s and stays high as long as God gives you your marbles. Crystallized intelligence is about pattern recognition. It's about wisdom. It's about putting ideas together. It's your professor curve. And this is the thing. If you want your 50s to be better than your 40s and your 60s to be better than your 50s, go from your innovator self to your instructor self. Become a mentor. Become somebody who shares knowledge and wisdom, somebody who puts ideas together in novel ways. People will sometimes say, I don't know, it's like, I had no idea until I was 60 I was such a good teacher. And I say, you weren't.
I hope I don't get the science wrong, but I think I've read this somewhere. Why do people get happier as they get older generally?
Yeah, so this is interesting. My students think they're going to get happier as they get, from their 20s to their 30s. And from their 30s to the 40s, because they're going to get all the stuff that they want. Oh yeah, no, it's the money and the job and the family, and it's all good. But achievements and those moments in time, they give you momentary happiness. They're halves, and the wants increase concomitantly with those halves. The reason that we actually decline a little bit in happiness ordinarily from our 20s through our 30s and 40s until our early 50s, not a lot, just a little, is because life is really, really stressful, and you don't get permanent satisfaction from those gains. But then, most people in the early 50s, they have a big increase in happiness until about 70. At that point, you break up into two groups. One half keeps getting happier all the way to the end, and the other half starts getting unhappier. So you want to be in the happier group, right? I mean, I'm just going to take a wild guess.
Is that all about health or no?
No, it's not about health. It's not about very much health at all. It's a lot about mental health, but it's also about getting on your crystallized intelligence curve. It's all about, in your 50s and 60s, not me, we.
It's about using what you've learned, what you've gained, to then share with other people. Because if you just keep it to yourself, then there's no enjoyment there. And knowing it and having it then just makes you feel more isolated. Mm-hmm. But whatever it is you have, I'm telling you, it's like that Baby Ruth bar. Whatever you have, and it becomes more valuable even to you when you can share it with other people.
And if you learn that, if you take it to heart, if you practice it, then you're on that upward slope all the way to the sweet, sweet end.
Life is better when you share it.
We have a lot of good questions here. Here's another different one. If you're a cheerleader and humor supplier, how do you manage your boundaries when everyone takes your energy?
That's so good, Professor. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Scientist.
The truth of the matter is that there are people in your life who will take the energy away from you. There are people in life who will suck the life out of you, as a matter of fact. And when that is the case with people all around you, you have to ask yourself about the company you keep. And that's a legitimate thing to say. That's a legitimate thing to do.
What if those people are in your family?
Yeah, then you have to basically tell them to move out. No, I'm kidding. It's like, take a hike, Dad. No. Then the truth of the matter is then you actually have to start setting some emotional boundaries, and there's nothing wrong with that. We write in this book about conflict within families. It's not that you have to avoid conflict, you have to manage it. You don't have to disagree less, you have to disagree better. And one of the most important ways to do that is to say what you need. To not be giving to the point that you're sucked dry, you're a desiccated husk of a human being, and not feeling permanently aggrieved because people can't read your mind. You actually need to tell the people that you love the most and do them the favor and bless them by telling them what you actually need so that you can be your absolute best self.
I like that, to say, now you have the language. You can say, you are making me a desiccated I can no longer tolerate this. You are making me a desiccated husk of a human being.
So everybody's Googling desiccated.
Desiccated husk of a human being, and I will take no more. That's it.
That's right.
How do you accept that which makes you unhappy, that which you can't change, somehow to get beyond it to a happy place?
This is so good.
This is so good.
This is a good one because, the second big mistake beyond feelings or happiness, the second big mistake is that unhappiness is your enemy. The truth of the matter is that if you don't have negative emotions and negative experiences, you're not going to learn, you're not going to grow, you're not going to feel satisfaction, you're never going to find meaning. Furthermore, if you're trying to wipe out your negative emotions, you're going to be in danger in this world. You need unhappiness. One of the keys to your happiness is your unhappiness. The point is not to eradicate it, which people who get addicted to drugs and alcohol and dangerous behaviors do all the time. They're trying to mute their unhappiness. Literally, there's a part in your brain that processes your unhappy emotions, that people are trying to numb, people make it go away. It's incredibly dangerous. You need to accept it, understand it, manage it, learn from it, and grow from it, which is metacognition, what we're talking about. Let's give them one example of an exercise that can actually do this.
Okay, which one?
Okay? This is the failure journal. Let's give them here's the failure journal, the disappointment journal. Almost every day, something happens that you don't like.
Yep.
Once a week, once a month, something you really don't like happens. You try to, it's like, I'm just not going to think about this. I'm just going to try to let this thing pass. No. Get out your failure journal. Write down what happened. Writing it down moves it from the limbic system of your brain into your prefrontal cortex, where you can understand it and manage it. That's part one. Part two is you leave 2 blank lines below each entry. The first one you come back to after a month. Put a reminder on your phone. And when you come back, write, what did I learn from that over the past month? And then 6 months later, you come back and say, what good thing happened to me because of that? If you do that for a couple of years, you'll start looking forward to the entries in your failure journal, in your disappointment journal, because you're going to start learning about yourself. And you're going to say, wow, it's like, I don't know what it is, but ever since I started keeping that journal, every time something bad happens to me, I realize that something good came of it, and I got stronger and better as a person. That's how you can deal with it with real science and real changes in habits.
That's a really powerful practice. And you know what else is another powerful practice is we recommend in the book every Sunday or once a week, whatever day you choose, sitting down with a gratitude journal. Now, for years, I've been recommending to people to do gratitude journals. I have volumes of gratitude journals. I've kept a journal since I was 15 years old. So, in my early journals, it's, oh, woe is me, and I can't pay my bills, my light bill is due, oh, Lord, please, And then as I grew, and in the 90s, I ran across a woman named Sarah Brunbonic who said you should be thinking about gratitude and thinking about it in a really in a defined way that allows you to practice it regularly. And it has been a life changer for me. So it's an important part of
So you can teach gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
It's gratitude is a practice. Gratitude is not a feeling. Gratitude is a practice. Love is not a feeling. Love is a practice. It's an act of commitment and will. Happiness is not a feeling. We labor under this culture of feelings. It hamstrings us, our ability to manage ourselves and to actually build these better lives that we're looking for. And gratitude is the case in point. Gratitude is a kind of, in the book we call it emotional caffeine. Caffeine actually fills a little receptor in your brain that ordinarily a molecule that makes you tired would fill, called adenosine. And the reason you drink caffeine is not to pep you up, it's to not let you get too relaxed. That's how caffeine, that's the molecular action of caffeine. Well, gratitude is like emotional caffeine. It goes into the receptors of resentment. You have resentment all the time. And evolution says pay attention to the bad things because the bad things are more likely to take your life. The nice things are nice to have, but bad things can be positively dangerous. So that's why we have this negativity bias. But it's maladapted. There's no saber-toothed tiger is going to sneak into the 92nd Street Y and carry you off. I'm pretty sure, right? But, you get a bad post on social media and suddenly you have this feeling of dread and your chest is tightening up and you're getting all these stress hormones going through your body, right? When you have the feeling of fear or resentment or anger or self-pity, you can say to yourself, an alternative emotion that is also appropriate, aka caffeine going into those receptors, is gratitude. Because the truth of the matter is, no matter how bad it is at this moment, it's a lot better than this all the rest of the time.
If you could take a happiness pill, would you take it? Or is that like a category problem? It's not possible.
No, it's not possible. Because you have to have unhappiness to balance the happiness. So this thing that we're searching and that's really we're in pursuit of, and we all believe that it's our constitutional right to happiness, it's impossible in the form that I think most people are searching for it. And that's why I think the work that we've done together and now offer to the public is an opportunity to rethink how you look at happiness in your own life. One of the reasons I was so interested in having this conversation with Arthur is because in all those years, the 25 years of the Oprah show, I never missed a day, because I know some of y'all would be showing up and be very upset that Oprah's sick today. So in all those years, it's true. So if people would say, oh, Oprah, you're sick. Oh, you should go home after we leave. You should go home. But in all those years of the show, I would sit and talk to the audience after the show, and I would always ask people, tell me where you're from and what's going on in your life and what about the show do you like and all that. So it was my own focus group in a way. And I would always ask people about what they wanted, because I think that's one of the most important questions. We talk about it. What do you really want? A lot of people have not been able to define that for themselves because you grew up wanting what other people wanted for you. And you get to be 40 or 50 years old and you're still operating on what other people wanted for you, and you haven't really defined it for yourself. And I know that because I would talk to thousands of women over a period of time, because we were doing 750 people in the audience for 2 shows every day. And multiple times I would ask the question, what do you really want? What do you want? And people would say, I want to be happy. And I would ask, well, what does that look like? Right. And for many women, and it started to change as we moved from the 80s to the 90s, but they would always say, well, I just want my kids to be happy. Your kids being happy is not you. What do you want? What will it actually take to fulfill this thing that you say you're in pursuit of happiness? And being able to answer that question, first of all, acknowledge that you know or don't know, and then finding out what that's going to look like for you. That's what this book is about helping you to build the process of discovery of that for yourself.
You coined a term in the book.
Happiness.
Yeah. See, the thing is that people say, I want happiness. Well, good luck this side of heaven. You don't even want it this side of heaven, because pure happiness is positively dangerous, and you're not fully alive. You want happierness. Oprah made up that word. I've introduced it to the social sciences at this point.
Good. Let's get into the dictionary.
Yeah, no, it's really important, isn't it? Because if you want a noun for what you're actually pursuing, it's the thing that you're seeking to get happier, and that really is the happiness that you seek, which has plenty of unhappiness, has plenty of sacrifice and beautiful challenges and the tears that you share with the people that you love. It's a life fully alive. That's the life that we're trying to build.
We're just about out of time. I want to leave you both with this question. What is the most surprising thing you learned during this process?
We should give Oprah the last word, right? Because
No, don't give me the last word.
because
You're the
obviously,
professor.
it's like, I know my audience. We'll give Oprah the last word.
The key to happiness, right there.
It's like, they don't hire deluded professors at Harvard. I think it is that, there's a lot of, people always are looking for the one silver bullet, right? And I spent a lot of my career, there's no silver bullet, you gotta learn those things. But there is one thing to keep in mind. It's hard, but it's simple and it's straightforward. When we talk about faith, family, friends, and work, when we talk about the way that we treat other people, when we have an outlook on life that embraces life itself, it really comes down to this one big thing, the one thing to remember. If you can't remember anything else, it's funny that Jesus was asked, the 10 Commandments are hard to remember. Boil it down, Lord. He says, make it simpler. And so Jesus says, just 2 things. Love the Lord your God with all your soul and all your heart and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Okay. Then St. Augustine, who, centuries later is saying, even if you can't remember that, here's what you remember. Love and do what you will. And the truth of the matter is that we look at this from a scientific perspective, but putting one foot in front of the other as people walking on the earth just like all of you, If you can only remember one thing when you're desperate and it's dark in your life and you don't know what to do, love more. Love more, because happiness is love. Full stop.
Full stop. Full stop.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.